This is the A. I'm Reg Clay.
And Norman G.
This is the A, where we talk about life in the theater and the theater of life.
Yay!
As always, the A is sponsored by Central Works, a new play theater headed up by Gary Graves and Jan Schleifler. Central Works, a new play theater, reinventing theater one play at a time. And we, as always, want to thank Central Works for sponsoring the A. Happy post-Thanksgiving, everyone, and a happy Hanukkah. And we have a very special guest, Sharon Shao. Sharon, how are you?
Hi, I am doing well. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, exactly. And we were talking off mic. You've been involved, you were involved in my piece, the Brecht Project. Actually, in the Brecht Project in total, you were in, I think.
Which Brecht Project were you in?
Well, she was my prosecutor Liang in my piece, and she was also she was the moderator in Scott Munson's piece. I'm with her.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And also, you've been involved in SF Playground. We just talked about a piece called Fever. And also, you've been involved with Cutting Ball. And you've also been directed by Kieran Beshia, who we had her on a while back. So it's a small world, small theater world.
Yeah, I think it was over a year ago that we had Kieran on.
Yeah, exactly. And she was talking about Sir Raphael, and that was the piece that you were in. As I begin every podcast, Norman, happy post-Thanksgiving, and how was your holiday season?
Holy, so I keep making, and this has been my career for a long time, so I shouldn't be surprised, but I got an empty calendar. So I'm like, okay, I tell everybody, I got an empty calendar, whatever you want to do. Inevitably, Project 1 will come in and I'm like, oh, that's great. Project 2 will stack right on top of it. And I've had a week of that. So Cisco Systems, which everybody should know is, big. They have moved their thing. Yeah, their tech, and they've moved into software. They everybody was scrambling back in the day, and they decided software was where they were going. So they are software. And they do these great training programs for their staff to encourage empathy at work. And so I got an email maybe a week and a half ago saying that one of these trainings was coming up. They bring actors into role play. Right. And I said, oh, yeah, I'd like to do that. Well, I'm not. I'm millennial. Hell, I'm not in. What would you call it before that? I'm in that centennial. I'm one of those.
X. I think you're an Xer.
No, I'm not an Xer. Hell no. I am a boomer. Mofo.
You're a boomer. Okay.
I am a serious boomer. But I didn't know. I didn't jump on it. So I get back to her, and then I get an email saying, they only want this many people. You were the last person to clock in, so we're not using you. And I very politely, I'm learning this stuff about career. I very politely went, oh, okay, yeah, I guess. Let me know if there's another one coming up, and I promise I will keep an eye out for the email. Next day, another email. Oh, they're actually adding a day. Can you do that? Bam.
Come on.
Right on. Hey.
So nice. It pays great, and you do this role play with people. So it's 2 phases. The first phase is we give them a prompt. Like they have to say the line, you are not making your deliverables. I don't even know what that language means, but I am told that the reason I'm not doing it is because I have a lot of personal stuff going on. This crazy move to remote is fucking with me. What I do not do is apologize. Character 2 is a new employee, totally apologetic. So you go into these breakout rooms with them, with the employees, the actual Cisco folk. And so the first person I role play that first scenario with, the second person I'm totally apologetic. I'm doing what I can to try and figure this out. It's just a lot. I don't know. I'm sorry. Really wonderful. Second phase, you come back to these people, no prompt. So the first phase, they have asked for the meeting, and you hit them with your whatever. The second phase, you have asked for the meeting, and all they know is that you've asked for a meeting. And you come in to say, I'm sorry I'm falling behind on the project. My mom went in the hospital. She might have COVID. What do you do about that? And then the other one was they want to bring in race. Thank God that we are in this time period where there's this whole commitment on the corporate level to deal with issues of equity, diversity, whatever you want to call it. And so they said, in this very vague way, that character has an issue about race.
That's a polite way of saying it.
And I said to my trainer, what do you mean specifically? And she said, well, I'm an Australian white woman. I don't know.
I think she's giving you carte blanche to go for it.
So I used an example of something that actually happened to me. I model. That's one of my many jobs. I do modeling for art classes. And there's a big issue around this whole thing going on in the guild right now. And this old white guy is pissed. He's being discriminated against. And he's angry. So while we're on a Zoom meeting, I am actually texting him because I see how pissed he is, trying to calm him down. So afterwards, we end up talking. He says, well, Norman, you're a good model, so I hire you because you're a good model. It's not because you're black. I don't even think of you as black.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
So I just heard two things. One,
it's like a backhanded
you want to hire
compliment.
me, and two, you're racist.
Yeah, I was gonna let me bring Sharon in. Have you done? These are almost getting back to, because we're always interested in actors who do jobs that are not in the theater, that are not, let's say in theater or like I consider these are almost like industrials. Like there are times where I've done jobs for corporations or whatever. Have you done anything like that at all?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. As Norman was describing this job, it really reminded me of the standardized patient type work.
Yeah, we've done that before. Too? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I actually was in the process of being hired, and then COVID, the shutdown happened, so I couldn't. We'll see. Maybe they I think there's some word of like, because kids are still in graduate programs studying to be doctors, and there might be some kind of virtual version of SP work.
They are totally doing it, and if you want, I will give you a link. They are looking for a trainer, somebody who knows theater, to help train people for this. If you're looking for work.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I could be the trainer. But definitely.
Oh, I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could.
You totally could.
And now we're on the and now we're going to get a bunch of emails and folks from Facebook saying, "Ooh, let me," so we have to post.
I hope so. Sure.
Well, go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just other than that, like sort of the one-off gigs, I also do commercial acting, and that is pretty much like predominantly for tech companies. And I do have an agent that's based in SF, Bay Area.
Who do you have? Who do you have?
I'm with Stars. I'm signed. Yeah.
Wow.
Are you?
Are you
good for
you?
Thank you.
Of course, Stars is like the biggest in SF.
Right. Yeah, I know. They've been around for a while, and they're really on it. And it's nice because just like one of the interesting blessings that happened with Shelter in Place is that it's so much more flexible, this kind of work, whereas before it was honestly a little tricky to balance all of my different gigs with theater and rehearsing and shows. And
because you have to move around, you have to actually travel and get in a car and stuff, right?
Right, exactly. And like half of the time you're just sitting at a computer rescheduling things and negotiating with different people. So now that, we're at home and there's I don't know, there's just like more, I feel like, compassion from the commercial industry to be like, okay, I want to know how you feel with even showing up in person to do an audition or do a commercial. And now auditions are entirely on Zoom anyways, which I have a feeling they're not going to go back after, things get quote unquote back to normal.
Largely they are not going to go back. You're right.
Yeah. And actually, I do like the comfort of not having to travel, but also something that we've talked about on the Gay beforehand in past episodes, where you sort of like being in front of someone to actually have the interaction with whoever you're doing the audition for. at
Totally.
least gauge something, or at least, let's say there's a back and forth as if they're an audience member. So I
Mhm.
don't know, whether it's good or bad. Maybe we can have some
Yeah.
actors ask us, or let us know. Do you prefer doing Zoom? I had to do a Zoom audition. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you got this on Facebook, Norman. There was a company, Military VA Loans, was
Mm,
looking for an African American middle-aged actor to play a veteran. And actually, you could have done it, but
shit.
well, yeah, I
No,
mean, it was
no.
on Facebook, so I applied for it, and I did my little Zoom, and I had to post a
Nice.
little. They gave me a little script, and so I'm waiting to hear back from them. So I'm crossing my fingers. We'll see. But
Yeah.
I don't know, the if it's easier or better. I mean, what do you think, Sharon? Do you prefer doing auditions in front of someone, or do you prefer the Zoom?
Mm. Yeah, I guess there's so many different ways to look at it. I've done so many self tapes at this point where I I've learned, I think I've passed the learning curve, but at first in the beginning where I was sort of just like new to how to like capture the best take of myself in a self-tape audition where I spent like honestly like hours too many working on filming and refilming the perfect audition, which you don't get that, if you're
Yeah.
just in person. Whatever I have, what I showed up with in the room is what is received. And I think that's like what theater, that's what it is. And now that we're like going into this other world of like almost like film, and the experience I have with doing like commercials as well, where it's like you can just keep going and doing as many takes as possible, 20 takes, and then but it doesn't work very well, because it's like in the end I would go back and watch and edit things, or not edit, but like just rewatch all the takes. And usually the first take was the best one, anyways. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's an entire new ball game, I feel like, learning how to audition with the self tape thing. And then there's also just Zoom auditions. I if auditions in general weren't anticlimactic enough, Zoom is like another level because you just go on and like enter this waiting room thing and then have like 2 minutes to do something and then you just leave. And sometimes I just never hear back, or sometimes I do, but it's many weeks later. And I mean, I guess in that regard, it's pretty similar to what it used to be. Auditions have always just been that kind of like it's a very quick one and done thing, and then you're like stuck in a limbo world until you hear back or you don't. But I don't know. I could just talk about
Yeah.
it forever because it's a very
No,
weird
please.
experience.
But I mean, as us
Well,
actors, go ahead, Norman. I was just gonna.
it's always no, it's always frustrating. So you're right. We are going to move the culture. Our theater culture is going to move towards screen.
Hmm.
We have no choice. That's what we're going to do. And we will not go back largely. But it does mean that for those people who like theater, who like being in a live stage environment, it's going to be a totally different animal. You are not going to get through, it's going to be one more gate that keeps you out. If you don't have a good setup or whatever to
Mm.
present yourself well, and this is true in not just this medium, but in auditions in general, there's an actress that I know. I actually hired this actress because I saw her on stage and I thought she was fabulous. And then I started working with her and she was a little green, a little rough. And then a few years later, I was at a TBA general audition and saw her come on and do one of the best auditions of the day. It was amazing. And I was like, wow, she really grew. So she let me know that she was in a show a few months after that. And I went to see that show. I went all the way up to Vallejo. I commuted to go see this show. The show was not that good. Unfortunately, she was nowhere near the best thing in the show. All of her bad habits that I knew were in evidence. And what I realized is she paid a coach who made her do an audition piece the way he would do an audition piece. He exactly. I mean, you really could have just popped her out, popped him in, and that was the audition piece you saw. So she basically mimicked his audition piece and started to get a bunch of work off of it. But very quickly, everybody who called her in, she dropped off the list. She didn't have the skills, and this is what I hate, because I do the same thing. If I have to do an online audition, I'm not going to throw in the bad take. I'm not. I'm going to throw in the best take I have. And if I get the job and I'm not really that good, I just got lucky, then they're very quickly going to decide they're never going to work with me again, or they're going to fire me. I've seen that happen. And I think it's no different between stage and between this medium. But if you do learn the skills of working on camera, which is this is forcing you to do, it's going to take you away from the stage. It just is.
Yeah, I think the greatest currency of any good actor is the flexibility to deal with whatever, like we deal with it on stage all the time. There's, let's say there's a reaction or something happens on the stage that you didn't expect. And so you have to be spontaneous enough to deal with it. And there's a spontaneity with Zoom. It's like, oh my God, I've got to act in front of my computer camera and I've got to look at a script that may be here, or if you're lucky enough, you have the teleprompter thing on your and you don't have the luxury of interacting with your scene partner or whatever. But it's another skill. It's yet another skill set that you learn. And if you learn it well, then your name will come across. I mean, I don't know how long we'll be doing the Zoom thing, but other people will say, wow, he did a real Zoom, good Zoom performance, and I want to see him again. And all of a sudden you can add that onto your other skill sets, as well as the take with the camera and getting the best take and all of that sort of stuff, as well as doing it on doing a live audition. There are a couple of current events that we usually talk about. I have the feeling that as Trump's era ends, we'll stop talking about Trump and we can actually talk about, we can actually stop ranting about Trump. But in any case, I'm worried about, so late last night, FDA has approved the Pfizer vaccine, but it was after Trump threatened the head of FDA. Basically, if you don't approve it, then you're fired. So I don't know how to feel about this. Is it good? And we have a vaccine coming, and of course, the first rounds will actually go to the people who really, really need it. The first responders and the people who are on the front line. But I'd feel much better if it were approved by the CDC or WHO, the World Health Organization.
But it's not just the FDA. Everybody in the industry has been saying yes to this. So
yeah, okay. So I guess I feel more confident. Do you?
Sharon,
No, go.
How are you feeling as you watch all this craziness?
Yeah, Sharon, how do you feel?
Oh my God. It's just, I just feel like it's a monstrosity what this country has been doing. We are so screwed, and it's a terrible situation that's just continuing. Yeah, it is the most worst kind of drama live. I don't know. It's an interesting and abominable situation that I'm watching. I feel like with the vaccines too, I was talking about it with my partner earlier this morning that, England just got approved. They got some, 100, I don't know how many different vaccines or how many vaccines were released. But this was something that the Trump administration had promised, was the one thing they were banking on doing right, was all this talk about the vaccines.
And they purchasing enough, at least for in America.
Yeah.
I'll let you go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, no, it's true. And they with the I don't know, the strange negotiations that they had with bidding all these different pharmaceutical industries against each other to see who could make the best vaccine or make it the quickest. Somehow, I think that got that just sort of muddied the process and actually did not allow us to get the Pfizer vaccines as quickly as we could have. Is that true? There was
Yeah,
some.
no, you're absolutely right. The so-called man of the art of the deal, he even wrote a book about it. He was supposed to negotiate a deal where he was supposed to get more, or the United States would get the most vaccines and earlier, but he somehow botched it. I'm not sure exactly how he botched it, but I'm sure it was this wonderful personality. And so now, I mean, I'm glad that we're taking the time. I don't care, if we get it sooner or later. I just want to get the right vaccine and make sure that
Yeah.
it goes through all of the testing processes. But we need as much as absolutely possible. I mean, I saw on the route there are a couple of actors who have died because of COVID-19. There was a guy who was a star on Friday and also The Dark Knight.
Oh,
Tommy Lister. He's known as
yeah, yeah,
Tiny.
yeah. Tiny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was actually in the middle of a shoot and he had breathing problems and he died. And that's a consequence of COVID-19. Also, a woman, Carol Sutton, she was an actress in Steel Magnolias and Queen Sugar, dead of COVID-19. So, I mean, these are the bodies and these are people that we know.
Mhm.
So it's really, really horrible. I mean, I'm glad that a solution's on the way, but my goodness, the price
Well,
has
we're
been
getting to
really
watch
high.
England. England is being our guinea pig. We're getting to see how well, because they already are having trouble. And did you hear about Australia? Oh man, they had 50 something million. They had paid money for for this vaccine, and in the testing, there were some false positives, HIV false positives. And what I love about it is this is a neat concept to explain what they were doing. They created something that they called molecular Legos. They created a structure that the body interpreted and built onto the antibodies.
Mhm.
So that was telling the body to make these antibodies without, anything else. But they knew that there was a possibility that the body would misinterpret it as HIV and create HIV antibodies. So the people who tested positive, and that's why they call it a false positive, those people they've tested, they do not have HIV. There's no danger of getting HIV. It's just that the thing that they were using to create this response in the body reads as HIV.
Hmm.
Some tests, not many. It was a really small percentage, but it was enough that this was their big plan for vaccine. They just scrapped it. That
Wow.
happened this week.
Wow. Yeah. Have you been affected, Sharon? I mean, have you had any relatives or friends or whatever who have had COVID-19? I mean, how's it directly affected you? Hopefully not so much.
I've been so blessed actually to not know anyone in my direct family and circle of friends that has been affected, but I do know friends of friends, or like friends of my family members who have. And yeah, I mean, like some of these stories were just really shocking, and heartbreaking as well. Like people, I think, are still navigating how to, first of all, like uh, manage if they have symptoms, how to get tested, soon enough, and then inform everybody in their circles and like subsequent circles about they're having symptoms so that it doesn't spread. So I've heard several stories of just like, friends of friends who had family members basically um, ended up, you know, convening and hanging out and gathering for the holidays, and just didn't actually inform everybody that they had
Ooh.
a dad that had COVID
Mm-hmm.
that just tested positive, and so now the rest of the family got it. So it's, yeah, I mean, it's just tragic, and I think it's hard. Yeah, it's like a hard thing. I don't want to exactly like get like place the blame on any one person because I think it is still a really hard thing to navigate.
Yeah. But
And
people have to be honest with each other. I mean, if I have a cough and let's say if I have some symptoms, I have a duty. Even if I feel
yeah,
embarrassed, I have to tell, let's say I have to tell my boss, I have to tell,
Wait
people
a
in
minute, you
the
have a
office.
cough? What?
Right.
See, that's the problem. We get into that old rumor mill, and
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really, really horrible. Also, I wanted to Rebecca Jones. I'm sure you know about her. Have you heard about her? This is a woman who is she's a COVID data collector in Florida. And there was a house raid. There was FBI. I think it was the FBI who raided her
Oh,
house.
yes.
This is the woman.
Florida,
So
yes.
in Florida, so Governor Ron DeSanto basically says, "Hey, everything's okay. We've got COVID under control." And this woman's like, "Absolutely not. That is not true. I'm one of the data collectors. I'm one of the people who posted the statistics
Uh,
for what's
Right.
happening in COVID in Florida. These are the real numbers." And it looks like retaliation.
Oh,
They
it is.
they raided her house. They arrested her. They harassed her and her family.
You've seen the video.
One
It's
pointed a gun at her son. I don't. Did you hear about this, Sharon?
no, I did not.
yeah.
Oh
It's
my,
really crazy, and that's the politicization. Is that the word of it? It's politicizing a serious situation. I mean, we don't need information that we want to hear. We need information we need to hear. So there's no reason Ron DeSantis should shut up a data collector who's giving the people of Florida real numbers. It's horrible.
it's crazy. It's like, what is motivating? It's just a complete, like, either fear or just like there's half of this country or more that just does not believe COVID exists.
I don't
They
think
feel
more,
threatened.
but a significant number.
A significant enough, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's so close to half that you're like, okay. So if there's 72 million and we're 81 million,
Uh-huh.
that's a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. One last thing. I mean, to take the things away, I try to, put in something a little bit lighter. So Olivia Jade, you know who Olivia Jade is, right?
No.
This is this is the daughter of Lori Loughlin. This is the influencer daughter of this TV personality who tried to get her child into USC
Oh, right.
and went to jail for it. So Olivia Jade went on Red Table Talk. That's a new thing with Jada Pinkett Smith, and I guess Jada wants to be the new
Oh,
Oprah. And
yeah.
this chick wants to this influencer teenager wants to spin the tale of how her family is so sorry for what's going on. She never does she say it's my fault, I should have applied for school or whatever. Her mother's in jail right now, and she's still in I don't know, it just my temperature went through the roof
Right.
listening to this influencer talk about how it's everyone else's fault but not hers, that her mother's in jail for getting her in school and she didn't deserve it. So anyway.
That's what that Cisco gig I was talking about. That's what I loved about those two characters. One character never apologizes. The other character, nothing but apologies.
Mm-hmm. And I lament the death of David Dinkins. David Dinkins was the mayor of New York. He was the first black mayor of New York.
Right.
And I remember when I went to school at NYU, he was the mayor of New York at the time. And of course, he got a lot of flack for being black, and they tried to target him for
No, no,
spending too
no,
much
just for
money.
being black. That's really what it was.
Yeah, well, I mean, the flack that Obama, received for, I don't know, being uppity or being too, whatever. Um, David Dinkins got that, in the 90s. And it was really, I mean, he had to endure so much. I mean, there was Tawana Brawley, there was Bernard Getz, there was the Central Park Five, all sorts of crazy things going on that if it happened in the day of social media right now, it would be on camera immediately. This was all before Rudy Giuliani cleared everything up. So it was just an idyllic time. I don't know, before New York became Disneyified. Have you ever visited New York, Sharon?
I've been there. Was it like a couple years ago? I went during like Labor Day weekend or something, and it was actually surprisingly the most empty that the trains had ever been. Like I think it's like a special like weekend of time where everybody leaves the city. So that's when I got to visit. And I
Oh,
was there for 4 days. I saw um gosh, it's a Paula Vogel play. Um and
The one that oh God, what?
Indecent is the
Oh,
name of it. Yeah, Indecent, I believe. And it was a beautiful, beautiful play about sort of like a Yiddish and Jewish family, or team that does like they make theater during their Nazi encampments, and um, anyways, it's just it was gorgeously done, and you could see the different layers of like perspective and language being played out, and
Was it
how
Broadway or off Broadway?
it was Broadway. I
Okay.
don't remember what theater I saw it, but yeah, so I went to see a play and went to a lot of lines to get ramen. We tried to get like, well, stop by like three different ramen restaurants.
Oh, nice. What year was this? I'm just curious.
I believe this was, oh my God, I don't even know time. Like 2018 maybe, so pretty recent.
Oh, 2 years, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can imagine, I mean, and I will get into an origin story in just a few minutes, but if you can imagine a New York, if you had to walk down 42nd Street and Broadway, and instead of it being, just lined up and being nice and clean, of course, crowded, but, let's say the Disney characters that you see now, instead you'd see porno shops. It would be, I mean, it would be something that you'd see out of like Taxi Driver, that movie, or that's sort of how it was just before Giuliani cleaned everything up, and it's a very dramatic before and after. And I remember that time, and of course, it's totally gone now, and it's fascinating. New York is very, very fascinating,
I
and with
went once.
mhm.
Friends, the first time I went, friends took me. I was visiting friends in Pennsylvania. I was making my trip across the country to get back home to California. And they said, let's go to New York for a day. And we did. Wonderful. But we're walking down, 42nd Street, and there's a dude on the sidewalk, blanket down, selling CDs. And before we even know what's going on, he swoops that blanket up and disappears. And in less than 20 seconds, a cop car rolls up. And he's like, we were just like, oh, okay. We just experienced New York.
Yeah, and also the three cart Monte guys. I remember my second year, I got ripped off of $300. It's my fault, basically. I, put 20 down. The three cart Monte guys. They're
Oh,
like,
yeah, I know. I saw it in Boston.
How about
That
you,
same
Sharon?
trip, I ended up in Boston and I watched it.
Yeah, red will put you ahead, and black will put you back, and you put $20 to see
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
what the I think the black card is, and I lost my rent money just like that, and it forced me to get my very first theater job ever, which was stage managing. There was a off Broadway production of Alice in Wonderland, and that was in 1988, and that was the first ever job, and that was a lifetime
Which
ago.
version? Which version?
Well, it was a very experimental version. I don't know. I mean, it was such a long time ago. I don't even know who wrote it, but it was
Andre Gregory wrote a very famous one, a
mhm.
small cast of people, and they've got nothing, and then they explode and become the whole story.
Yeah, maybe that was it. It was a group called the Allen Theater Company. I think it was a group of alumni of NYU who did it. But basically, that was a job that I had. It was very ETW, very experimental theater. But in any case, yeah, that was the very, very first theater job that I had. But that was eons ago.
Yeah.
And with that, let's talk to you, Sharon Shao. Let's have an origin story. How did you? Where were you born and raised, and how did the theater bug bite you?
Ooh, sure. Born and raised in the Bay, actually, at Fremont. And I'm first generation Chinese American, and my parents immigrated from Taiwan, and settled. Well, it's a long story, but they eventually settled in California and worked just very. My dad's a singing teacher. He still teaches singing and voice,
Wow,
and
that's cool. Wait,
yeah,
so singing,
he has done.
singing
He's
English, singing Chinese, singing
O-
both?
Opera?
both. Yeah, both. So actually,
Nice.
my dad was, when he was in Taiwan, he and his buddy sort of like were a big deal in the 70s, and they were like a Simon and Garfunkel inspired,
Oh,
like,
wow,
duo
nice.
when
Very
that hadn't really reached the country yet. So people were like going crazy or whatever that. And so got to eventually go on tours to different countries and sing. And so he was just like a professional singer and performer, and still does, but is just a bit more low key now, and is a very just like sweet, highly regarded teacher among the Chinese community in the Bay. So I would say I started just like I got bit by the music and performance bug from him for sure. I think the first time I sang, it was like trying to copy him, like I was singing Phantom of the Opera, like while he was singing like in the shower at home, and I wanted to be the Phantom with him.
Oh, how nice. Any siblings? Do you have siblings?
No, only child.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my mom worked for the state, and she, classic sort of more, or not classic. We had a very, I don't know, we were our own little insular family, but the idea of, pursuing the arts and liberal arts in college was still not seen as a viable option within my family structure. So I've always done community theater and like high school theater and musicals as a kid. But I guess I don't know, at some point towards the end of high school as I was applying for colleges, I decided that I really wanted to actually study this as a craft more. And that was something that did not totally please my mom, who was no. Yeah, she was like, but you should also double major in like something, even econ, like just to give yourself some other avenues to pursue. And I just didn't want to, yeah, I didn't want that. And so I went to UC Santa Cruz, and I did the theater program there in my undergraduate.
Did your dad support you?
And he did. I mean, he was always more like radical and progressive, just naturally because he sort of strayed away from the pack, and did something more liberal in the performance arts. So, but like we just had a very modest kind of life at home, and my mom was, I guess, wanted. I mean, it's just that's like classic, first generation children of immigrants story, where I had a lot of pressure to make something more of me and fall into something that was a bit more secure. And it wasn't like anything as crazy as being a lawyer or a doctor, but just something that had a bit more lucrativeness to it. And I still am figuring out exactly. I mean, aren't we all like in the theater just trying to figure out where exactly to fit our passion with the other, I don't know, pillars of like adulthood and success. And so success was a big part.
Yeah.
Good way to put it.
But I would think that your mom, I mean, you're getting work. I mean, you already have an agent, you're signed with stars, and you're getting, you're in commercials and all that stuff. So I would think that your mom would say, hey, wow, she's actually making money off of this. So
Yeah.
she should, I would think that your parents would be proud of what you're doing right now.
Thank you. And I totally want to, make that clear as well. My parents were, and are still super proud, and well, my mom passed away a couple years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she had a long-term battle with cancer. But towards the end, I mean, certainly she, sort of, I think having a child in America changed a lot of who she was and her core understanding of parenthood too. I mean, there's just like a lot of memories that I have of her saying pretty blatantly, like, you are like an alien to me. I don't understand you. I don't understand all these different ideals that you have. And, the dreams that you have are so different from mine. And I don't know what to do with that. And I think that in sometimes it certainly challenged our relationship, and there was a huge kind of like language and cultural barrier there. But at the same time, it also paved a new way for our dynamic, and it was a very unique one. And I think, being however, like whatever my ego brought into our family, I stuck to my passions and my ideas of success. And because I sort of fought back on that older cultural, value system, it happened, and because we did have share so much love, she she eventually came around and was very proud and saw every show that I did. And
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
As you were talking, I have another podcast called I'm an American Too, where I interview individuals who are not born in America to get their perspective of American life. And what you're saying is it's a constant theme, especially among first generation children who absorb American life. As children, when you are a child, you absorb everything that you see on television and just the cultural things that let's say someone from another country may not, because they hold on to their culture. And there may be even fears of assimilation. It's like, oh my God,
Mhm.
she's going to lose what it means to be Taiwanese or,
Right.
from our own culture. But there's always the road between keeping the bond of your family, but also keeping your individuality has always been a delicate road. But as long as two people care about each other, I'm glad that
Yeah.
before she died, that the two of you sort of found the not necessarily closure, but a better understanding.
Totally.
I love that story because to me it is so connected to a lot of the American experience. You have so many parents who want better for their children. So they do everything they can to try and deal with the negatives and keep their children safe from that and encourage you moving on. And of course, it
Mhm.
makes sense that people in that position will then go, wait a minute, what are you doing? I don't understand it. And it's like, well, of course you don't. You made a space for me to move up.
Yes. Totally. Yeah, and it's a generational kind of stepping stone too. We could only be where we are now and to continue to push that barrier because of the work that they did, and because of just like the tough um assimilating, I suppose, that they needed to do in order to protect themselves.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes assimilation is a bad word because it's like you're removing yourself from your culture. You can sort of
yeah.
blend. You could sort of be an individual and blend. Let's say whatever the new culture or whatever new you're taking in, and still hold on to your core culture. No one can take away the Taiwanese in you.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk to us about what kind of studies did you get when you studied at UC Santa Cruz?
Um, all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think that so I there was an undergraduate program, so it was more of like a mash of introductions to a lot of different kinds of methodologies. One that really stuck with me was acting and voice in the archetypal kind of work. So going into different archetypes and exploring like the different journeys of them and using gradients of that in every character. So just like classic archetypes like the lover or the mother or Lucifer or the child. And so we did a lot of I remember that was like one of my favorite courses where we you know took apart Shakespearean text as well as modern text and tried to find, okay, what essences of archetypes, which is like a whole, it's an essence as opposed to like a stereotype, to kind of unlock some understanding or like human relational connection to the character. So that was
That,
something I really, yeah, it's on my mind because I just recently applied that to a show that I performed last night, in fact. But yeah, and then there was like all kinds of other.
Wait a minute. What did you perform last night?
I did Desdemona by Toni Morrison.
Ah,
Wow.
It was I mean, oh my God, such a gorgeous piece of text. But it was for Davis Shakespeare.
yeah.
Um, kind of like I believe it's an internship program actually. So there's these college students that are working within the larger festival, and it's all, of course, happening on virtual. And so we did just 1 week, a tight week of rehearsing um, for a 2 nights of live reading um, performance. So, and it's through the StreamYard platform. So it's like a live, you can watch it on a YouTube.
Hmm.
Oh, is
Um,
it on YouTube now? Because I'd love to see it. I don't know. Is it still on now?
it is happening on Sunday, actually, tomorrow at 2 p.m. And I can send out the link to you so you
Please
can.
Sweet.
do. Please do. We'll totally link, put a link in.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. Yeah, it's cool. And it's actually a musical as well. So these students, I mean, wonderful, um, like music composers, wrote original music. The guy who composed it in less than 2 weeks, I believe. And so it's all been a very, I think it's as well, they mentioned it being like a learning curve, how to adapt this entire festival onto virtual.
Mhm.
So things have been taking longer, and, the whole process of developing the play or coming up with the cast. And
Hmm.
that's
So,
been.
so it sounds like someone took the text of Toni Morrison's Desdemona and made it into a musical. Is that what it is?
So Toni Morrison wrote this as a response to Othello and the just um, the lack of character that was given to the female, the tragic.
Yeah, the poor woman that gets suffocated.
Yeah, exactly. And that it was a conversation she had with another director, I think, in New York or something at the time. And this other guy said, it's a horrible, like, Desdemona is a horrible character, or this is like a horrible play because it's so anti-feminist. And she said, oh, nothing could be more false. And let me show you exactly what wasn't said. And so this entire play is Desdemona's kind of moment to speak and to have voice. And she empowers her story, and she's in this sort of limbo state where she's after being killed and undead, and encounters Othello and Emilia and Saran, so all the other characters from Othello, and they're sort of making sense of what the systems were in Earth life that led them to their tragic end.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I could totally dig that.
Yeah.
It's strange. I hadn't heard about this piece before. Had you heard about this piece before, Norman?
No, no, I'm not. I know very little about Toni Morrison. I've read a couple of books, and that's about it. Well, maybe three,
Yeah, well,
maybe
yeah,
more. I
yeah.
don't
I mean, obviously, I know some of the movies that have been
know. Right.
interpreted from her writings. But wow, no, that's fantastic. I was going to ask, did you study like the basics like Stanislavski and I don't know, beats and objectives and that sort of stuff when you
Sure.
were in school?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that still remains very strong. I would say, like, while I was in school and also in every kind of actual production I've worked on, every director brings a bit of um, just like playing the action and finding your
Right.
super objectives. And yeah, so I feel like I have sort of at this point in my career, it's like a broader belt of different. Of methodologies or tools to use. And I'm at a point where I'm wondering, if I want to continue in this, do I want to go back to school? Do I want to study a bit more, like, in depth into something? Like, we only touched like barely on Meisner when I was in college, and that's something that is fascinating to me. So other than that, I've been reading a lot of their books, and like I have like been reading a Meisner book, but it's not the same as actually practicing it. So, just some questions, of course, while
Yeah.
we're in this state of like
Wait a
nothing.
minute. You've gotten some Meisner, or you just are familiar with the concept?
I'm familiar with the concept because I've read and like I've read his. I'm like in the process of reading his book and like it breaks it down into exactly class by class how he teaches or how he taught. And I
Hmm.
also live with other actors who have taken who have gone to Meisner School, so
Ah,
a lot of conversations, and I've done a couple of exercises. Again, I wouldn't say that I'm like trained by any means
ah.
in Meisner though.
Yeah.
Have
You know,
you?
it's interesting. We've had this conversation where if you're working, I mean, there are some actors who have never had any training at all, and you can make an argument they don't even need it because they're still working. They're getting paid and whatever. But you do have some actors who are like, there's some roles I want to do, and I don't know how to approach them. So maybe I do need to go back to school. So there's always been this discussion that we've had over several episodes, whether to go back to school, how much school do you need? Is school necessary? There have been individuals who have had horrible experiences in the school. So it's fascinating to see here some just I guess an actor's perspective as to do I go back, do I not go back, and also money. If do you
Totally.
spend all this money to learn something that you may already learn just by reading what you're doing right now and just experiencing it. Your next production may be with a director who has had some Meisner training, and you may get that training on the field.
Yeah, right. Money is also such a huge factor to it. Like, I've pretty much vowed to myself I don't want to put any more school debt on myself. So, if I were to go to school, it would have to be something that felt really right for me. And yeah, I'm curious about also like leaving the country to go study somewhere else where education is free, or like applying to schools that have uh, like essentially like free programs, or that you can do work for, right? To like
Right, right. Get paid for actually.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I promised myself I was at San Francisco State and I promised myself when I got out I was not paying for anything else. And I managed to go at least a couple of decades
Yeah.
without having to. Because we all want training, we all want to be exposed to that, but when you get in the field, it's a different animal and you need to be respected for that.
Yeah. And also, I would just say, as someone who's been on both sides, like I went to school for acting, but then I spent several years just not involved in theater at all. I got involved with, I have something, I have, just like you, Sharon, my dad was involved in music. As a matter of fact, there's a picture of him on the wall there. But I used to write for him, and he was an R&B writer, R&B singer,
Mm,
and now he does gospel. But I was just involved in that for really all of the 90s until my
mm,
day job sent me to the Bay Area. And now, I work for the DA's office. And then I discovered, oh, wow, there's theater here. But
mm,
having almost a decade of not doing anything at all, I had so much life experiences that I could bring on the
mm,
stage that I couldn't bring prior to that. And combined with the technique, I really do believe in technique. I think that like every half hour before I go onto the stage, I do my vocal exercises, and I do breathing exercises, and I focus on I go back on the script, and and focus on the beats of certain things that I need to do. So there's certain things I bring from the school, but there's
mm.
certain things that I bring from my regular life. There are roles that I can do now that I could not do just coming out of school. So there's a yin and yang, excuse me, between the both,
Yeah,
that I find fascinating.
totally.
You've been involved in a lot of. You've been involved with Cutting Ball. You work with Playground. It sounds like immediately after coming out of school, you've sort of hit your stride. I mean, was there any lull time, or did you sort of get work immediately?
I pretty much tried to just hit the ground running. I think right out of college, the first job I got was at a box office sales associate at Marin Theater Company. And so I was
Oh,
like, even if I'm not like actually getting roles right away, I at least want to be in the theater and working among, other theater makers.
sure.
So that was sort of my strategy. And then I started teaching artist work,
Yeah.
and that has stuck. Yeah. So I think another part of the whatever, life experience is getting to teach theater to, I teach much younger people, but
Yeah.
it's an incredible learning experience, and real-time feedback for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. Were
Yeah.
you weren't at Marin during the Thomas and Sally mess, were you?
Ooh, no, I left before that.
We have talked ad nauseum about that, and
Woo!
Oh, I'm
I think
sorry.
you're
They're gonna have to hear that for the next decade. They need to hear that how wrong that was.
yeah. And speaking of which, that's because we've talked about race relations, and especially Thomas and Sally deals with how, let's say, a director or a production group relates with its actors, and also we can talk about Eli Orquiza's open letter. But a lot of times when we talk about race, it's usually black via white, and we almost ignore, let's say, Latino issues or Asian issues. Have
Yeah.
you had to deal with race issues as an actor or as a creative?
Yeah, definitely.
You have.
Yeah, sure. I mean, something that is, well, one of the more recent projects I worked on that was an all Asian cast in an Asian story. I had found out that it was just really hard to even get theaters to say yes to doing that show, because there's this, you know, misconception that there are no Asian actors or Asian
Right.
artists that would care or that would come out, and it's a complete invisibilizing of this huge community. So there's, yeah, I mean,
Can
for
you say where, or you don't have to, but I'm just curious what the show was?
This show, so the show is called Man of God.
Okay.
And I did a reading of it first with Magic Theater, which was cool. And the playwright actually was still developing the play. I think it was
Mhm.
2 years ago. And Joyce
Joyce,
Domenico,
huh?
she was there. Yeah, this
Right
is how
on. She was a guest. She's been a guest on here.
I
She's
know.
she's amazing.
I heard that episode. Yeah, she's so cool. And Natalia Duong, and it was written by Anna Mensch, and Mina Morita actually directed this reading, and that was one of the first, surprisingly, yeah, kind of one of the first experiences of just being in a room with Asian American people, like only, and just
Mhm.
and just being candid with each other, like, yo, this is so hard to find here, and like, we also rock. Like, we totally deserve to have our stories heard. They're
Right.
really, really interesting, and it's about sort of like Korean high schoolers who are Christian and on a mission trip, and
Mm,
with
right.
like all the shame that comes with that, and then it ends up being kind of like this thriller of a story, and so
Right.
that was a great success. We performed it for the Magic Theater audience, which was primarily white and older,
Right. Yeah.
and just really, um, in my mind, it was like, I mean, I never really like attending talkbacks, but the questions and comments that people gave were really just off the mark. I felt like they truly did not understand the stories and the characters that.
It's unfortunate that you have an all Asian cast, but you don't have an almost an all Asian audience. It's like,
Mhm,
wow, this is not the target audience,
mhm,
and obviously they don't get it. I mean, luckily when we did Foreman in Paris, Norman, we did have at least for a couple of nights, we did have an African American audience, or at least almost maybe half of it. But
It was
doing
such a joy. Yes.
yeah, but there were times, and we did it in Hayward, which
mhm,
is a predominantly white audience. So that that can be problematic. We had Lily Chung Crystal on. I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago, and she headed up for a Ferocious Lotus before
Mhm.
she went to Minnesota, and she sort of talked about that. Just having telling your stories, something
Right.
that you could, because I'm sure, Sharon, in your short but building career, I mean, I've been very impressed with, the work that you've done, already. Um, I'm sure there have been a lot of times where you've told other people's stories, but not your story.
mhm.
Um,
Right.
Yeah,
does that frustrate you?
definitely. Yeah, or I've been placed into roles that are, I guess, sort of assumed to be white characters,
Yeah.
and try to infuse my um, uh, just a bit more of my perspective.
Right. Yeah,
On
they hired you.
and they hired me, but it was not like received well, or didn't wasn't handled with a lot of grace, or just like, yeah, people who are honestly just kind of ignorant about what it means to truly like see the actor as well as the character, the person that is actually bringing that story out. And of course it's like that document, like white theater must go.
Right.
What was called. It's like it really is such a it's like everywhere.
Yeah.
Every part of doing theater is without is not without that personal, like the personal is political kind of involvement. Yeah, it's it's just hard.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to work with any of the theater companies that focus on telling that Asian American or Asian story?
I have worked with people more so within companies. So the actual company I was mentioning before that had a hard time choosing to actually produce Man of God. The first time I did it was with Magic Theater, but the second time it was at Shotgun,
Right.
and we did Michelle Telgaro directed that,
Oh,
and
nice. She's
yeah, oh my God,
lovely,
I
Emma.
love her.
Yeah, I
She's
do
the
too.
Yeah, she's the best. And she's a company member with Shotgun. And it was actually, I don't know if this is like information that it should be out here, but it was, just truly a challenge for her to advocate to do an Asian American play.
Yeah.
And it took a couple, I feel like several tries actually, before that was decided. And it actually took the audience members who came and watched a virtual reading during COVID,
Uh-huh.
and they emailed like, please, please, we actually are interested in doing this, and we're watching this play. That convinced Patrick to say yes.
Yay.
So that was good. I mean, people do show up, and so that was sweet. But yeah, I've not worked with specific like Asian American groups or companies yet.
Yeah.
I think that that's a huge part. That's a dream to like just keep building on that.
Hmm.
Because so far I've worked with white theaters,
Right.
and there's like a little, just that like camaraderie of POC within every production that
Yeah.
we sort of help to be like, okay, I see you, and we're allies with each other, but
Yeah.
it's always under that larger umbrella of, but they
But
don't
they
get
don't. Right. Yeah.
it. Yeah. So I'm hopeful. I mean, because I know that there's so many great alliances that do exist in companies. Like Ferocious Lotus actually is awesome, and
Yeah.
I would love for a chance to work with them.
One day you'll get there. I mean, I've been very
As long
impressed. I
as they
mean,
keep producing. Yeah.
yeah, no, and the short time that I've worked with you, it's funny. I'm going to tell this story. I always love these inside stories. So when we were casting for the Brecht Project, the very first time, and I had no control in the casting. That was a Susan Evans thing. The first casting, she did not cast. It wasn't multicultural as far as especially judicial process. And I wrote to Susan. I was like, "Listen, I really want an Asian American, person to be the prosecutor because I want it to be multi." The very, very, very first reading that I did, which was away from the Brecht Project, it was a Black Judge Patton, and I did have an agent. I don't know if you know Eko Yamamoto, but she did the prosecutor, and I had a couple of other folks. But in any case, I was like, hey, listen, if you can find an Asian American who can grab, the prosecutor and learn, sort of the lingo of the language, which I know can be difficult, that would be great. And so and she said, hey, there's a woman named Sharon Shao, and I'm going to bring her on. And I was like, okay, so let's see. And you knocked it out of the park. You were excellent. You were really, really good.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, that's
um
an excellent play. It was so fiery. I
Yeah.
had a lot of
Right.
fun playing a prosecutor.
oh, thank you so much. Have you thought about directing or doing another aspect of I don't know if you want to write, produce, or do other aspects of theater?
Cool. Yeah. I actually did have a stunt with directing with, well, first of all, I direct kids all the time, and we do musical theater, or we do all kinds of just like different short theater things, and that's always fun to put on the directing hat. But I have directed an Asian American play with the Forum that Kieran Beckia, Julius Rea, and some other people they have created. It's just like a, you know, sort of like political theater or journalism as well as theater put together. And so I did, oh my gosh, This Is Not a True Story is the name of the play. And it was written by an Asian American MFA student and is about actually like all the three sort of like gone down in history as being the sort of like damsel in distress Asian woman character that has to kill herself because her white lover has decided that she's not worthy of him. And so we did like we really dove into those tropes. So that was really cool. I got to direct Nikki Menyes in it, and some other really wonderful actors, and it was again an opportunity to have like more voice and status in a rehearsal process, and say like, this is actually what we know about, and now there's no one else. And it was like this absence of any other kind of force of whiteness, I guess, or of power to kind of like tell us what we needed to look and sound like or to focus on. And we had so much fun. So that was a really great opportunity. I was very scared. I was anxious about just like playing director, and I think I learned a lot about it is just, you know, it's not all about me. Of course, there's so many other minds in the room, and all I have to do is to help like facilitate and ask the right questions. And yeah, so I was cool. I would love, I've always been very fascinated by directing. Yeah. And
Uh,
then
and I'm sorry. Well, I know it's a 1:12. I just want to be respectful of people's time. I would love to keep going, but are we scrunched for time?
I don't think I've got a particular crunch, but you know, I think we've kind of encompassed the world
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
I did have two quick questions. Norman, I had a question for you. I never asked you this. Were you nervous your very first directing gig? I mean, your very
Ah,
first time directing?
Yeah.
no, my very first time directing, I had gone to Cal Arts for a year,
Oh, cool.
and and then was not invited back for my second year, which really was depressing to me. But
Wow.
I felt like I was on fire with all the knowledge that I had, and I'd come there from a community college. So I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to finish up my associate's degree. So I go back to the community college. Well, I've already had the theater classes there. So I walked in and I talked to the teacher and I said, can I teach? Can I be your assistant, your teaching assistant? And he said, well, why don't you just take the acting class? You can take it over. So the acting class was mine, and I was technically his assistant on the advanced class, but I really kind of ran it. And I got to direct. And I had no doubt that I had a great idea about what to do and how to approach it, and
Mm.
bam. And then I sort of put that away because I didn't think of myself as a director. And when the African American Shakespeare Company started up, what was clear was we did not have a director. We had Sherry Young had a vision of a company, but we didn't have somebody who would hold on to the identity of being a director. And so I ended up sort of creating that role. I found people to do it, but I was right over their shoulder for the whole process. From the picking of the show to the casting to the production, I was on charge of a lot of it. And by the time I'd done that for a couple of years, I was like, oh, when I started my own company, Oakland Public Theater,
Mm.
I hired directors. And then after about a year, I was like, I should go ahead and just direct something. And
Mm.
after that, I never looked back.
You just took over. I hear you. I totally hear you. Oh, is
Mm.
my audio still there? Yeah.
Your audio is here, yes.
Okay, cool. I did want to ask you, Sharon. It sounds like the answer is no, but you haven't had any issues as a woman on stage, like I don't know, like any casting couch issues or sexual harassment, anything like that. We've asked a lot of women, and it sounds like you've had very good experiences. Am I right?
Um, I have been in uncomfortable positions before, and I think I've just also been privy to like that, like a workspace that is not unsafe,
Hmm.
regardless of like if it directly affected me or if like I had like, direct harassment instances happen, it still was like a knowing thing before. So yeah, I have experienced that, whether directly or indirectly. And I've also been in a show before. This was when I was still like in college. And I worked at a Shakespeare like festival, and things were stacked against me because I was younger. I was like one of the only women of color in the entire acting company, and I was an intern. So I didn't have much like, and there was not much just communication between us interns and anyone higher. So there was like a true hierarchy. And I was put in some, yeah, like unsafe, uncomfortable positions with a stage choreographer, actually, like a
Oh, geez. I hate to hear stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'd
yeah.
love for us to dive more into that, but we've gone long anyway.
Okay.
What about your future? What do you want to do? Do you want to stay in the Bay Area? Do you want to venture out to New York or LA, or where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Oh my God, what a question. I I'm also just feeling a lot of existential crisis of living in the Bay Area currently, trying to do theater during COVID, no less, and um, yeah, in the process of this really sort of nasty like eviction as well. And so I've been thinking about it a lot, like wow, it's really hard to just uh, make an appealing offer of myself, to be approved for a house in this area. Among and my group is all actors and freelancers. So um, I know that opens up another can of worms, but it's been on the mind as well. And so I've been thinking about like just locating somewhere new because of that. Although I know like New York is still also a very
Yeah,
maybe
it's expensive too, as well. Yeah.
expensive too. But I also feel like I would love to experience theater there. Yeah, I think if that was the next, that would probably be the next like best thing. I know I'm so Bay, born and bred, but I want to experience like the hustle and bustle of theater makers where there's always something happening, as opposed to like it's sometimes hard to even like really hear like what's going on in the grapevine in the Bay Area theater community. I don't know if that's, yeah, might just like because right now where everything is virtual. But yeah, I'd love to try New York.
Yeah, no, I can see you being, either SAG-AFTRA or Equity and, making it there because, we didn't even get into whether you sing. I'm going to assume that you do sing. And, I'm sure you can easily, make it there. Of course, it's very competitive, but, you definitely have the chops for it.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
I want to thank you so much for spending the time with us. And, it's been a fantastic conversation. And like I said, I want to be respectful of people's time. Let's get into shout outs, birthdays. Norman, you have anything? You got to cut your mic back on, or unless you're coughing. His mic is off. Okay. Um,
Ah.
that's okay.
I'm here. Sorry, I was coughing, so I turned my mic off.
Oh, COVID cough. Don't do it.
Birthdays. So I've got a few. Kobe Bryant, Lordy. Kobe Appel is a young man who I've known since he was a teenager, and he is now a graduate. He just graduated college and became fascinated with theater. I'm not sure if he's still a theater guy, but I got to use him this year on Zoom reading that we did of a Jeannie Baroga play, Maddie May. And so
Maddie May, yeah.
yeah, got to do that this summer. His birthday's coming up. Trish Mulholland is somebody you talked about shotgun. She is a stalwart of the shotgun stage. She's an amazing actress. She is so fun to be with. She's so fun to watch. Her birthday is today. Michael Gene Sullivan, who I would hope people would know if they know Bay Area theater, is one of the major architects of what's going on at the Mime Troupe right now. I'm going to skip some names because I think you will have them. Howard Swain is an actor I got to work with on The Tempest at Marin Shakespeare Company many, many years ago. And it turns out that his well, I don't even know what word to use for it. His resume. He was one of the actors in some of the early works of Sam Shepard. So Sam Shepard is a Bay Area playwright. Howard got to work with him. When I heard that, I was amazed. I will skip another name. Benton Green is an actor who is now in New York, and you see him on TV every now and then, but he used to be in the Bay Area. We got to do a show with thick description in San Francisco called The Seven. It was a hip-hop adaptation by Will Power of Seven Against Thebes, an old Greek, one of the Greek, it's part of the Oedipal. It's part of the Oedipal trilogy.
Oh, the Oedipal trilogy, yeah.
Yeah,
the Oedipus series, yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually, by all accounts, it's actually one of the worst ones. It's later. It's the grandchildren of Oedipus. But Will Power picked it up and did an amazing hip-hop piece called The Seven. Benton was the king, or one of the kings in that. Vieira Y was a woman who used to be in the South Bay, African-American woman who was really making black theater happen in the South Bay, and now she's moved back east. Sylvia Creighton's is somebody who I met after she had seen me in a few shows, and then I found out she was actually a theater artist in her own right.
Yeah, and a great costumer.
And a what?
And a great costumer. She's done costumes for Central Works.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, Sylvia Creighton's is fantastic, and she's been a guest on the A2. I'll let you go back.
I said Vieira. Sylvia. Eleanor Wright is a local theater artist, director, and I will give her a special shout out because I was looking for something to do for a Zoom theater class, and I saw that she had directed this play called Mr. Burns at Oakland Tech, virtually. We saw it when my son's graduation happened. They mentioned it, and I was like, what is that? And she got me a copy of it, and I ended up using it. Fantastic play. Wonderful artist. Claudia Rosa is a Latina in Bay Area theater for a long time, which you would never know when you see her because she's a gorgeous young woman. And
we've had her on as a guest as well.
Right, and we got to work together with Each One Reach One. So we got to go to Juvie together. A couple more. Eliza O'Malley was my voice teacher and brought me into my first role in opera. And Belinda Taylor, who is no longer with us, but her birthday is coming up this week. She used to be the executive director of TBA, Theater Bay Area. I think she was either the executive director or she ran the magazine. Those two folks worked so hand in hand. I was never clear exactly what her role was, but a major advocate for theater. Even once she stepped down from there, she was still helping Bay Area theater out, being a major advocate in Sacramento. And the last one I have is also a person who is sort of tangentially theater, Ashley Boyd. She is the wife of John Warren, amazing director that I've worked with, and Ashley has been a huge supporter of the theater scene here. Those are the ones I have.
Yep, John Warren, I think we had him on 2 years ago, right?
We did.
Yeah. Okay, let me run through my list real quick. Allison Payne, her birthday was yesterday. Yep. I think I acted with her. It was Ruben Grijalva. He did a movie, a quick short called what is it? Shadowball. And I played James Cool Papa Bell, and Allison Payne was involved in that. Also, 2 days ago, Olive Fox. She is a young. We don't usually focus on the technical folks, but She was
Right.
a stage manager who did Heathers that I worked with. This was done at the Gateway Theater. This is at oh shucks, I'm it's along the Embarcadero. It's close to the pier. It's close to the pier. I can't think of Fort Mason. It's
Oh,
at a theater at Fort Mason. In any case, Olive Fox, she must be at least 20 years old. I mean, she's right out of school, but I'm hoping that her career will go up and up. And her birthday was 2 days ago. 3 days ago, Tia Harris, who is a former teacher of mine at Duke Ellington School of the Arts, a wonderful woman. Just she always had a smile on her face, always had a hug for each student, and really wanted to uplift us Black kids to make us that we are Black and proud. And speaking of a teacher, one thing that happened, because we've had, I think we skipped 2 weeks of doing the Yay.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, one of my greatest mentors, Donald Lease, he passed away, I think, a couple of days ago,
Oh.
and it just tore my heart apart because he really taught us. He didn't just teach us acting; he taught us theater history. He taught us all about the Elizabethan period and the Tudor period, and all about Greek theater, and how Thespis was the first actor. But he taught us Black kids how to be proud of ourselves. He called us scholars. I think of the movie with Robin Williams. I forget that movie. What is the movie called?
Dead Poet Society?
Dead Poet Society. He reminded me of that type of a teacher. He really uplifted all of us. And so I really lament the death of Don Leese, and, just uplift his name. Any case, so Tia Harris, happy birthday to you. On tomorrow, Julie Kawabara. She is a Philippine actress.
yay!
Bendel Stiffer. Do you know Julie?
Yeah,
Yay!
she's
Yeah,
in
her.
Man of God with me. She was in
Yeah,
the reading of that.
no, she's excellent. She and her husband Chuck Laxon. I mean, they're a super couple.
So
They're
good.
always enjoying each other, and they're both very funny. I mean, it's almost like Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. They're just so much in
Oh,
love, and we're hoping to have them on the Yay again. Well, not again because they've never been on February. We want to have couples on. Couples who have been involved or who became
Yay!
involved in theater. We want them in. So if you can think of anyone who joined as a result of theater and who've fallen in
Michael J.
love.
Sullivan and Valina Brown.
Yeah, if you
yeah.
can think of someone, Sharon, let us know.
Yeah, Leron and Davis and Kenny. Kenny's
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah,
so sweet.
and
Yeah.
even in Melvin and
And Jet.
his partner
Yes, that's the next one I was going to say.
Jed. Yeah, exactly.
Woo.
Okay, going on. Shay Acevedo, Shay
I
Angela
skipped that
Acevedo.
one.
He was my Chester Himes in my play Foreman in Paris.
Our Chester
That's
Himes.
right, our
I
Chester
will
Himes.
totally own that man. He was so wonderful.
Oh, he was brilliant, and my cousins are still in love with him. His birthday's on Monday. Also on Monday, Michaela Greeley, a
Yeah.
fantastic actress. She played Julia Maria Callas,
Mm.
and won a TBA award for that. And she was an ex-East Ender, so she and I have been on stage many, many times.
She's incredible.
Yeah. Also on Monday, Jerome Gentis, the
Yeah.
former founder of Play Cafe / Musical Cafe. I think he's
Yay!
on, and he's a fantastic writer in his own right, and he's done a bunch of stuff at Playground, hasn't he? I believe so.
Yeah, he continues to. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. On Tuesday, on the 15th, Elizabeth Curtis, she and I shared the stage. We did a Civil War Christmas. I'm looking at my posters. We did Civil War Christmas. She's a fantastic singer and actress, and I first met her at not Playground. It was Piano Fight. I don't know,
Mm.
Sharon, have you ever done Piano Fight before?
Yeah, definitely. I love them.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. And so
Yeah.
Elizabeth Curtis, I want to uplift her. Also an actress that I met at Piano Fight is Doris Renee Bumpus. She's a fantastic Black actress and singer. Her
Mm.
birthday is on Tuesday. We did Sylvia Creighton's. Also Dave Moschler. I think you saved that for me, Norman. His birthday is on Wednesday.
Hmm.
He is we had him on the Yay. He's actually a conductor. He has an orchestra, the Awesome Orchestra,
Huh.
and they have worked out of the Brooklyn Preserve, which unfortunately is closed down.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, and I worked with him. We did Candide, one of my first, the one and only opera that I've ever done. And he was a fantastic conductor and also a voice teacher, and very young. When I think of conductors, I think of someone like in their 60s or 70s, but he's like, I don't know. I don't even think he's 30 yet, but he's done amazing work. Let's see. Claudia Rosa, we've done her. Nick Donaldson, that's another husband, and also he works with his wife was a ex-Easterner. In any case, his birthday is Thursday. And the very last person I have is Kara Harold. She is a film director and also a writer, and I acted with her. We did The Marriage of Bet and Boo by Christopher Durang way back in 2001. And that is it. That's my list. Shows.
So this morning, and I saved this, but this morning Thomas Simpson of Afro Solo got in touch with me. He is putting together I'm not sure what he's calling it. Black Men is all I really know. But this piece that is going to be a series of solo pieces. So I'm working with Vernon Medeiros, an actor who has worked. It's funny, I got to be there as at the African American Shakespeare Company was.
Norman, you're frozen. Norman, you there? Okay.
Oh.
Uh-oh. This is
no.
This is the tough thing of doing things in Zoom. Go ahead, Norman. Go ahead, Norman.
Oh.
I'm directing Vernon's solo piece.
Yes, we hear you now.
Hello?
Yep, we hear you now.
Okay. I'm directing Vernon's solo piece. So today we did a sort of check-in to see how the pieces were going, and I'm thrilled to say our piece was looking very well. So that should be coming together and be available on Zoom. I don't have a date yet, but in January.
Okay. And also, Sharon, if you can push your piece, I think you're doing a piece tomorrow, right?
Yes, yeah. It's Desdemona, written by Toni Morrison, happening with the Davis Shakespeare Festival.
Right on. And what do you have anything after that?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment? Well, that's okay. No, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Sharon, did you have a good time?
I did. Yeah, this was a wonderful, fruitful conversation. Thank you so much. And I wanted to go on and on and on, but I want, like I said, I want to be respectful of people's time. Well, for those who are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and write down your comments. What you like and what you don't like. It always helps us when you subscribe, because I'm always looking for. I want to get our numbers up so that we can tell other people in the theater community, hey, the Yay is a place where we have insightful conversations, and we can also uplift any theater companies who want to promote whatever shows they're doing. And also, you may be listening to this. We're on any podcast app. We're on Spotify. We're on the Apple Podcast app, that little purple app that's on your iPhone or iPad. If you're an Android user, you could use the SoundCloud app, or just go on soundcloud.com. The Yay was created by theater people for theater people. If you have a show you want to advertise, if you just want to advertise yourself, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. I'm at Red Space Clay. Norman is at I'm
at Who's Your Hoosier.
Thank you so much. And Sharon, are you on social media? Is there a way that potential directors can hire you or contact you?
I have an Instagram handle I will drop. It's my last name, Shao_Dynasty.
Right on.
On Facebook, just by my last name. Yes, thank you. And I have a website if
please do.
That in too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What's the website's name?
SharonShao.biz.
SharonShao.biz, right on. Yeah, if potential directors, Sharon Shao is just absolutely amazing, a dynamic actress with a great range. So, if you are a potential director or
I'm sorry, say that again. What was it? The Shao_Dynasty.
Shao Dynasty.
Shao_Dynasty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As if it sounds like what, the third or fourth Chinese dynasty was, that the Shao dynasty or whatever.
Yeah.
Got it. I got it. And that's SHAO, not XIAO, right?
Yes, that's right.
Shao, exactly. All righty. Thank you so much. And we didn't even talk about the Thanksgiving or whatever, but have a wonderful weekend, everybody. And as Norman and I always say, we gotta find
Better sign off.
And we are out.